The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network. There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, I'd say Excelsior too, but it's not quite the same recording this without you in the room. I got used to that last episode, and now I miss you.
I'll tell you, that was a lot of fun, Chris. And, you know, it's funny. Of course, you were also on the Horror Show with Brian Keene last week. You, myself, and Joe Hill. That has gotten some national news coverage, Bleeding Cool and Sci-Fi Wire, etc. But no one has mentioned that episode of Defenders Dialogue with us in the same room.
I know, isn't that strange? It's almost as if that's much less interesting to basically 7 billion people.
I don't care, though. I enjoy doing this. So let's do this. Today, we're going to my third favorite city in the United States of America, and we're going there with Marvel's Godzilla. I am, of course, talking about Las Vegas, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I don't share your affection for Las Vegas, but I appreciate that you like it, Brian.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know me well. Of course I like Las Vegas.
Well, I got to tell you, this episode is fun. There's not a lot to it. There's not much to chew on here, but the best part of the issue, again, we should say it's Godzilla number 9, written by Doug Moench, art by Herb Trimpe, inks by Fred Kita. The best part of it is that for no apparent reason, Godzilla has found himself in front of the Boulder Dam and is irritated that his way is blocked.
That's right. You know, he's strolling through the desert. You know, I don't know what Godzilla's thinking, but maybe he's thinking, bright light city, gonna set my soul on fire. Who knows? That was Elvis, Viva Las Vegas, for our younger listeners.
That was more like the elderly retired Elvis from Joe R. Lansdale's Bubba Hotep, but okay.
Thank you very much. But yeah, we open with a gorgeous splash page by Herb Trimpe of Godzilla attacking Boulder Dam. And the best part for me, Chris, I don't know about you, in the bottom of the panel, there's a tourist pointing at the giant monster crashing the dam, saying, "Godzilla, I'm telling you, it's Godzilla."
Because what else could it be?
Yeah, this is the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Could it be Galactus? Could it be MODOK?
Well, and then on the next page, there's a guy pointing at Godzilla as Godzilla's tearing at the front of the Boulder Dam, yelling, "It's a mirage! It's gotta be the desert! The heat!" Which I love. But even better than that, Brian, is the fact that Godzilla, even though he would have seen Boulder Dam coming from miles away, has walked up to the front of Boulder Dam and is whacking at it, tearing at it, until it gives way, and then washes him down a canyon at such distance that he ends up finding himself in the desert, far from the dam, where he stands up and then can see Las Vegas in the distance.
That's right. The one thing Doug Moench is doing more with this issue than he has in previous, he's finally getting into Godzilla's head. The narration and the caption boxes are telling us, what's going through Godzilla's mind. And he's looking. It must be a city, but so unlike other cities he has known. Godzilla is from Japan, correct?
Yes.
Aren't most of their cities brightly lit and noisy and on 24 hours a day?
I mean, some of them, for sure. Certainly the one with which he has the most history and affinity.
Yeah. So, Godzilla's asking himself, should he enter the city or should he simply move on? Does it really matter? And then we transition to the city. I don't know how much of, the subplot with the gambler we need to get into.
I want to just summarize it, though.
Okay.
The gambler is a guy named Winslow Bettit, as in bet it. So that I enjoyed. And I'm just going to summarize it. We keep coming back to this guy. He's got his last dime, and he's like, should I use the dime to call my wife and tell her I've lost all our money, or should I play the slot machines? Plays the slot machines. He wins the jackpot, and just as he piles up the jackpot, oh, by the way, he's playing because his mother is dying, and she needs his financial help. And just as he's gathering up his jackpot, the flood of the rest of the Boulder Dam giving way that comes and just sweeps Las Vegas away, sweeps away his jackpot, but in the water he finds one dime. So he feels like he still has his last dime, and he uses it to call his wife. And when he speaks to his wife, we find out that not only has he just lost all their money, but his mother's been dead for 3 years, and he's kind of a psycho, and he's just in this cycle. So
Yep.
He reverses the charges and gets the dime back for the phone call, and then he's wandering around trying to find a way to continue to gamble.
So that's the whole subplot there.
Yeah, and it was actually pretty good.
It was. But since we never see him again in the Marvel
It
universe,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do see Rob and Dum Dum many times again in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So we should cover here. Dum Dum is enraged with Rob as he climbs out of the red Ronin armor. It says here Dum Dum Dugan is berserk with rage, and he says, "You blasted blockheaded little brat."
Yeah, Dum Dum is less than pleased.
Yeah.
So it is what it is with that. I think we keep going back to this, and I'm glad we're gonna have a change of pace coming up. But basically, Dum Dum is so angry that not only is he saying no more with this Rob, but he's basically now decided if only Rob can pilot Red Ronin, then no more Red Ronin.
Yeah.
So he's decided to sideline what must at the time have been hundreds of millions of dollars spent by S.H.I.E.L.D. Just so he can thwart this punk teenager.
Yep. Of course, given, the devastation that Red Ronin and Godzilla caused last issue, you can't really blame them.
No, but Godzilla is good enough at causing this devastation on his own.
Yeah, this is true, and
not,
that's what he's doing in Vegas, and he's not facing off against a monster or a giant robot. He's facing off against the Las Vegas PD, and they are faring about as well as you think. But then once again, the one foe Godzilla cannot fight shows up, and that is the giant wall of water from the Boulder Dam, and it sweeps him away again.
And I would like to say that that's a great panel, but it's actually a really silly panel.
It is.
It's a really silly panel. I also want to say that I do like this line from Dum Dum because it speaks so much about who he is. I don't care what you do, but just keep that kid away from the overgrown tin can you call Red Roman. It says everything we need to know about Dum Dum, that he can't remember the robot's name.
Yep. So we end with Godzilla continuing to trek east across the United States, disappears into the desert, and we're told that the next issue, which we're going to jump to right now, he will face Yetragar. Yeah,
and so I'm glad we're on this. It's a 2-issue story in Godzilla 10 and 11, same team. That's consistent. It's nice to have a consistent creative team on this book.
It is.
And so let me sum up, because I don't want to. I want to spend my time talking less about this particular story than about why I like it.
Okay.
So the summary is that there is a Sasquatch that was buried in the ice for who knows how long. And there was an atomic test, because now Godzilla is headed for the places in the American Midwest where atomic testing was done. And Yetragar came out of the ice, was reborn because of the atomic test, and grew the way that Godzilla supposedly grew, right?
Yep.
So now it's a giant Bigfoot. And that's all. Like, what more do I need to tell you, folks? It's a giant fucking Sasquatch.
An atomic giant fucking Sasquatch.
Yeah, fighting Godzilla. And to me, now, Brian, the reason I say it that way is I want to talk to you about Bigfoot of our generation, because we come from an era where there was a Sasquatch movie in the mid to late 70s released in the movie theater. We come from the era where the $6 million man fought Bigfoot in a crossover episode. We come from an era where Leonard Nimoy hosted In Search of Bigfoot. So to me, that's what this represents. To go back and read this 2-issue story, all I can think about is how much I loved the idea of Bigfoot when I was a kid.
Bigfoot in the 1970s American culture, Bigfoot was absolutely one of the things that dominated the zeitgeist as far as kids went.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, that $6 million man storyline alone, we should note Bigfoot was portrayed in $6 Million Man by the legendary wrestler Andre the Giant.
Perhaps best known as the Giant in The Princess Bride for people.
Exactly. But it was sort of a throwaway plot line at the time. They did a two-parter, which featured aliens living beneath Mount Shasta in California, and they had this robotic Bigfoot that did things, physical labor for them. But, you and I and every other kid watching at the time, we fell in love with Bigfoot, and they brought that character back again and again and again.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy In Search of, all the cheap Bigfoot horror movies of the time. I can remember getting books by Ivan Sanderson and Lauren Coleman and all the other great cryptozoologists of the era. I voraciously reading them. You and I and Joe Hill were talking on last week's horror show about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. He was lucky enough he got to go to Loch Ness when he was a kid. I could not convince my parents to take me to Washington to look for Bigfoot, so I would go out and look for him in the woods around the house, and I'd camp out at night. I was convinced I was going to find a Bigfoot and take a picture of him.
Yeah. Listen, I can remember very clearly being probably 8 years old, and my family was on vacation in New Hampshire. We had rented some kind of house in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, and being in the basement with my brother doing something and seeing something go by that basement window, the one that's high up on the wall because it's in the basement, and seeing and being 100% certain that what it was Bigfoot had gone by outside the house, because we were in the middle of the woods.
Right.
It was completely plausible to me that Bigfoot had walked by. And so to me, and I think that if people who did not grow up in that era with us can't appreciate how much of the pop culture, as you say, zeitgeist was about Bigfoot in that era. So,
what? It's come back again.
Yeah, starting.
I want to interrupt. Finish your thought, but I want to circle back around to that.
No, I was just saying, it's the idea that Godzilla would fight a giant Bigfoot when these comics came out was like, A, of course he does, and B, thank God he does. Because I was like, yes! It's fantastic. But what were you going to say?
I was going to say, we've seen, over the last 5 years, we've seen Bigfoot certainly popping up in both the horror and the bizarro genres. Right. The very well done found footage film Willow Creek, written and directed by comedian Bobcat Goldthwait. Leave all your preconceived notions about Bobcat Goldthwait at the door it is a very effective, very well done horror film. Lots of books on the subject, but we often talk about my youngest son. He's 11, and he's kind of my pulse on what's popular with kids. And Bigfoot is big with them again. In fact, he and I have spent some time out hunting for Bigfoot out in the woods as well. And it was his suggestion, his idea. So, I don't know where the resurgence is stemming from, but it's definitely back in the zeitgeist again.
Well, clearly this new generation has taste, because there's nothing wrong with a good Bigfoot story. Before we talk about these issues a little bit, we're going to sort of cover them in brief, but have you shown Dungeon Master Troll Hunter?
Not yet. It's on our list. We have movie night every other weekend. Mm-hmm. We do a movie on Friday night and a movie on Saturday, and I let him pick. Sometimes with input from myself. Troll, that's on our list. This past week, he went for The Blob, the 1988 remake of The Blob, which is great pick. But I think that is coming up very soon on the list. I think next it's either going to be that or the original Alien. So but both good choices. Troll Hunter a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, but I love that movie. Oh, it's fantastic. Mary and I watched it on a whim, not expecting anything. We hadn't heard anything about it, and we both loved it.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. But anyway, so basically we're back into this thing. The helicarrier, with one engine only still working, is making its way across the desert in slow motion pursuit of Godzilla, much like the zombies chasing the canal boat in the legendary Zomboat, which we talked about with Joe Hill as well.
Right.
And basically they realize that he's headed across, the flats where there were nuclear tests. And then we get the history that I've already recounted of Yetrigar, and how he became a giant Sasquatch. Then, Brian, we get an interesting little vignette here. So despite the fact that Jimmy Woo forced a kiss on Tamara in the last issue, or 2 issues ago, in this one, Jimmy and Tamara are supposed to be watching Rob, but instead, Jimmy is apologizing.
Yep.
For doing that without asking. Despite the era in which this was written, Jimmy Woo fucked up, and now he's apologizing for kissing her without her consent.
Good for you for being woke, Jimmy Woo.
Yeah, exactly. Jimmy woke. But Tamara actually tells him that she was just startled, and it wasn't that the kiss bothered her.
That's right.
So for the moment, Jimmy Woo is off the hook.
They're so busy with each other that they're not keeping an eye on Rob, which was their one job.
Yes, they had one job.
And Rob takes off again in Red Ronin. He hijacks it and takes it for another ride.
Yeah.
While the helicarrier is facing off against Yetrigar. And this is my favorite part. One of my favorite parts. A giant radioactive Bigfoot throwing a giant boulder at the helicarrier and knocking it out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly. And this is also when the helicarrier is crashing to the ground, we see inside and everybody sort of off their feet. And instead of worrying about his crew, a Dum Dum Dugan is yelling, "Holy cripes, why me? Why me?" And it's just like, this is a personal insult. It's not about the damage or the potential injuries or deaths. It's not even about the damage the danger he himself is in. It's about the insult to his manhood here.
I love Dum Dum Dugan. I'm not even going to try to lie.
Yeah. And then we get the whole, look at that thing. It's a giant Bigfoot, a Sasquatch. Yeah. So.
Yeah, eventually we get to Godzilla and Yetrigar facing off over the Grand Canyon. Now, what could be even cooler than that? As the two of them begin to fight, and topple into the canyon. What could be even cooler than that? Red Ronin shows up.
Yes, well, so they're fighting, they topple into the canyon, and they interrupt the lovely whitewater rafting vacation of a family. And they become like Mr. Bennett in the Las Vegas issue. They become the sort of ordinary people we're following through this. And I actually love this part too. I love the idea of, if they ever made a movie of this, I love the idea that you have this ordinary family rafting in the Grand Canyon, and they encounter Godzilla and Yetragar crashing down into the Grand Canyon, blocking their path in the river.
And then a giant samurai robot.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at the end of the issue, Red Ronin shows up. And that's a great panel, too. Red Ronin coming down out of the sky while Yetragar and Godzilla are facing off against him. Issue 11, same creative team. And, we get a recap of everything that's going on. And then look, it's just all out battle.
I don't know how we spend time describing panel after panel. It's just three of them fighting. It's Red Ronin and Godzilla teaming up against Yetragar. They're trying not to. Well, Red Ronin's trying not to hurt him.
Right.
And Godzilla.
Although I will say that Rob in Red Ronin doesn't have an equal kind of sympathy for Yetragar as he has for Godzilla. So it's not all living things that he cares about.
Right. Howard, meanwhile, our Howard Hughes character lets Dum Dum and Gabe know that the helicarrier is toast. So Dum Dum and Gabe have to take off in one of the little shield planes. And what I love about this, they're following Bigfoot's tracks through the desert. Mm-hmm. Okay. But keep in mind, folks, it's a giant radioactive Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple things. First of all, my late friend and Tom Snagosky's late friend, David Krause, loved Godzilla movies beyond anything else. And this issue is what Dave would have called super battle. You just can't. I mean, it's the best. And there's the family, including Jeff and Mary, who come down the river and come around the corner of the river, and they're face to face now with Red Ronin holding Yetragar in a full Nelson while Godzilla attacks the two of them.
Yep.
You can't beat this.
No, you can't. You can't. It's good stuff. But again, folks, it's page after page of these three wailing on each other. And in the end, Rob does what he has to. He blasts the canyon above Yetragar and causes an avalanche and buries him beneath the avalanche.
Yes. So now they've ruined San Francisco, destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge, destroyed the city of Las Vegas, and collapsed the Grand Canyon onto Yetragar.
That's right.
And Dum Dum Dugan still has a job, ladies and gentlemen.
And Dum Dum Dugan has a new respect for Rob. Yeah. And as Gabe points out to him, the little brat took care of our problem, Dum Dum. And, Rob is not feeling so triumphant. He says, I saved Godzilla, but I had to kill to do it.
Yes. Rob is sad about that. But
that's right.
Anyway, all right. Well, listen. The best part of this, and again, those two issues I really do enjoy. And it's just fun. I mean,
there's a lot of fun,
right? I mean, this is what it comes down to with this series, where, we're not getting deep into the continuity of the Marvel universe. We're not spending a lot of time with that. It's just fun.
It is.
As we go forward, it gets crazier. But
that's right. Next week, for example, you may think, all right, well, he went from Alaska to California to Vegas. Where is he? Is he going into the Midwest next? No. Godzilla's going where, Chris?
He's going into deep space, Brian.
That's right. So we will see you back here for that. Before we go, however, folks, I just want to give a quick plug. Every week, our engineer, Tom Clark, he's the one who makes Chris and I sound good. He does it, and we don't mention him a lot on the air, but I want to mention he's got a new book out. It's called Good Boy. I've read it. It's basically watership.
Is it about his pet Bigfoot?
No, it's not about his pet Bigfoot, but it is about pets. Basically, think Watership Down by George Romero.
Oh, I'm sold right now.
Yeah, it's really. I'm not just plugging it because Tommy does our show. It's really excellent. It's a debut novella. In not talking to Tommy, I suspect it's not his first novella. If it is, then holy shit, dude, you could do this for a living. But it's his first published novella, and it's really good. It's really, really good. It's called Good Boy. It's available right now on paperback and in Kindle.
Excellent.
So, all right, Chris.
Brian, you know what I say to Good Boy?
What?
I say Excelsior, Tommy Clark.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Project Entertainment Network presents The Necrocasticon, where we blend horror and heavy metal for our pleasure and yours. With hosts Tom Clark, Scott Groverston, Walter Ball, Sergeant Fury Dan Roberts, and our guy on the couch, Skip Novak. Featuring interviews with writers, directors, musicians and actors in the metal and horror communities. Mondays wherever you find your fine-ass podcasts.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Manda Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocasticon hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want bizonged leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows.
Three guys with beards: Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybury, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocasticon.
Brian Keene of The Horror Show. Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilia of the Mando Method.
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans.
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith.
John Urban, sick of ink stains.
Bizong's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.